and welcome to another episode of My Gay Divorce. I'm Carl Dunn, and as many of you know, I wrote a book called My Gay Divorce. So do me a huge favor, please click the subscribe button that is in the corner, because the bigger the number of social media followers I can get for this, the faster I can get this published and into the hands of the people who really, really need it. It is the first book of its kind, so please help me get this thing out into the world. Now let's get on to today's question, which is, how do I tell him I want a divorce? So in this video, I'm going to cover 3 things about how to tell him, 3 things to expect after the conversation, and then I'm going to save one last thing to the end. Pretty important little moment that'll happen, but I'll tell you about that then. So, how do I tell him? Face to face, quickly and clearly. First thing, face to face. For everything that you meant to each other, for the big day that you had, for the promises that you made that didn't work out, you owe it to him and you owe it to yourself to do it face to face. You may want to do it by texting, you may want to send an email. I mean, I get it, it's awful. Like, I was panicking for days before I had to go and do this. But here's what I'll say is I'm really glad I did it face to face, because later on when people ask me how did it happen, I could hold my head high and say, I went up there to see him face to face, to give him the news in person. And you will feel much better about being able to say that that's what you did, because it's the right thing to do. Quickly. I didn't want to waffle on for hours and hours. I didn't want to talk around it, and I didn't want to hint at it like crazy, hoping he would ask me, wait, what do you mean? Do you want a divorce? I wanted to do it in a way where I was ripping off the Band-Aid, like all bad news I think should be delivered, like let's just get to it. And clearly, there would not have been much to gain by going back through things that had happened in our recent past and nitpicking them to death and we'd already had many arguments about those things and what they meant and who was responsible. Like, there's nothing new to gain there. Instead, the way I approached it was I talked about a theme. So referring just in general to the recent past, I said to my ex-husband that I now realize that there are things about you that are never going to change. Not for me anyway. And I've decided that I don't want to live with this anymore. So this is the reason why I'm telling you that I want a divorce. I found that was very helpful, because for me, it made very simple, very clear, undeniable, and quick. So now I'm going to talk about the 3 things that happened after I told my husband. Prepare for a real conversation. When you deliver a piece of news like this, even if on some level your husband was expecting maybe this was in the air, it's still a shock when you hear it for the first time. You've had days, weeks, months to think about this. You may be launching this on them and it's going to come as a total surprise. But what I found happened with the 2 of us was that we had a conversation afterwards that was incredibly like a relief. It was almost as though we had been playing the roles of these, like 2 actors playing roles in a play, and then we were off stage and we were just sort of talking about the play that we'd been in. I guess what I'm saying is we had a very real conversation because there was nothing at stake anymore. If you can have a favorite part of this process, which, there's nothing much about it to like, I do treasure that one moment. But of course, you also have to prepare for the worst. Now, the next thing I'm going to talk about, I'm talking about in theory, because this is not what happened with me and my ex-husband, but shock can affect people in different ways. It may get into a massive screaming match, and if it does, perhaps that's what it needs. But for goodness sake, please don't hit each other. For the first reason, because physical violence is like the worst thing that 2 people can do to each other. But also, secondly, having been through a divorce, any kind of physical violence will come back to revisit you in the process, and you just don't want that to happen. Then the third thing I would say about after you told them the news is you need to have a place to go. It's highly likely that the 2 of you are living together right now, but after news like this has been delivered, it's probably not going to be very easy for the 2 of you to live under one roof. I had to go that night. It would have been too strange for the 2 of us to have been living, under the same roof, let alone sleeping in the same bed. Whether it's with a friend or a relative, or even if you have to get a hotel or something for a few days, have that ready to push the button on, because you will probably need it. After I delivered the news to my husband that I wanted a divorce, after we talked it all out, this will sound really strange, but we were both incredibly hungry. So we decided to go to our local Chinese restaurant for something to eat. And we ordered food and we were chatting and talking like it was a regular night out. In retrospect, it's very strange, but again, we were, I guess, both in shock, you know. And in the middle of the meal, there came this moment where we looked at each other and suddenly the enormity of what we were about to do set in. The adrenaline wore off, the reality set in, and then there was literally nothing more to say. And right at that moment, the two of us were just so exhausted. Quick recap. Tell them face to face, tell them quickly, tell them clearly. Prepare for a real conversation, prepare for the worst, and have somewhere to go. And then the one last thing, prepare for the moment when the adrenaline runs out and the reality sets in. Thank you very much for tuning in for another episode of My Gay Divorce. I'll be back soon with another video, but remember, in the meantime, you are not crazy, you are not alone, and you are going to get through this. All right? I'll see you guys soon. Hey everybody, thank you so much for tuning in for another episode. Please do me a favor and hit the subscribe button in the corner. I can get my numbers up, we can get this book out together, and you can be part of history, I guess, in a way. So remember, there is the My Gay Divorce Facebook page, and there is also a website, mygaydivorcebook.com. Thanks a bunch. I will see you next time, everybody. Cheers.